What's going on, good people? Look, I'm so excited. I'm back home. I'm at home base, back in the studio, as you can see, and it's taken a minute to get back here. It's been a whirlwind these last 2 weeks. Probably two of the most impactful weeks of my entire life. And I wanted to make this video just to kind of talk about it and share the story because I've been feeling I've been feeling pulled towards doing stuff like this again. I used to write a ton with my social media and stuff. I used to do what we call cabin checks back at the camp that I used to work at, where I would kind of speak to kids every single night. And I just have been feeling pulled towards that for a variety of different reasons. But I feel like these past 2 weeks in particular just kind of pushed me over the edge because I've been given a ridiculous opportunity, like a stupid opportunity. And I've just been so blessed and privileged to be able to actually experience it. And I feel like if there's anything from my experience that I can just share and use to help somebody else or give a little bit of that insight to somebody who might not be able to get an opportunity like I have, then it's more than worth it for me to sit down and make a quick video about what's been going on. So anyway, what am I even talking about? As most of you probably know, straight after graduating from college, University of Michigan, go blue, I joined Eric Thomas and Associates. Eric Thomas, of course, the #1 motivational speaker in the world, and I joined his team as my first full-time job straight out of college. So already that was an insane opportunity just to get to learn and see how they operate and how he does everything. Was a crazy opportunity, especially for somebody who has always been interested in personal development, professional development, speaking, writing, like all that sort of thing, right? But these past 2 weeks, I have been privileged to be on the road with him literally 2 weeks straight. We were in Atlanta a few different times. I spoke on stage with him side by side for the first time ever, which was a crazy experience. We went to Dallas. We were in Houston. We were in Virginia. We were in like all over the place. I think I counted. I was on 10 different airplanes in like a 7-day period. It was absolutely insane. And so I just wanted to take that experience and break down a few of the principles that I feel like I came away from that experience with, a few of the things that I learned throughout that process. And like I said, just give it to you so whoever's watching this might be able to vicariously experience some of that, because I know that it's changed my life. It's changed my perception of how I see entrepreneurship. It's changed my perception of how I see the people business, the work that E does, and developing people, helping people grow, and just so many different things that I've learned. So I'm not going to tarry. I'll get straight into it. So I got 3 things for you. #1 is experience is worth more than gold, or exposure is worth more than gold. Those are interchangeable, experience and exposure. And it's crazy because I'm the type of person who has to come to conclusions on my own to really believe them. Like I have to, and I shouldn't even like claim that, but it's been my experience for the past 24 years of life, is that I have to come to my own conclusions about things before I truly understand them and accept them. Terrible limitation to have. If you can learn from other people's mistakes and guidance and principles, please do that. But for whatever reason, I'm just so hard-headed and stubborn that I feel the need to go learn everything myself. So my old mentor actually told me basically this exact thing years ago. I'm talking about 3 or 4 years ago when I was still in college. And my old mentor was Brandon Wynn. He was a national team gymnast, Lord of the Rings, like super, super talented, super accomplished gymnast. I think he's the most accomplished rings gymnast that the United States has ever had. Hopefully I'm not misquoting that stat, but I believe that's the case. But we did a online personal training business together back in the day, and he owned it. I was like the head coach of his community when I was in college. And I loved it, right? Because I knew I wanted to get into something like the personal development, online coaching space. I was big into fitness. Obviously been an athlete my whole life, so it was like a perfect fit. We got along really well, the whole 9, right? And so I actually called him about this opportunity with ET before it even happened. So I was telling him, I'm getting involved with E. I'm kind of volunteering at some of his camps, helping out wherever I can. and I think that I'm going to ask him for an internship or an opportunity. And I was asking him, Brandon, for advice on how to go about it. And somewhere in that discussion or conversation, one of the things that he brought up to me was, don't chase money. He was like, if you can not think about money for the next 5 or 10 years, I guarantee you will be financially successful. And I was like, that doesn't make any sense. You're telling me, here's this thing that I want, don't think about it, and then magically it's going to happen. Like, that didn't make any sense to me. And I heard what he was saying, but I didn't actually receive it. But he was trying to convey, what he was trying to convey to me was that experience and exposure is worth more than money when you are young. Probably throughout your entire life, but as a young person, that's only been my experience. I'm only 24, so like that's the frame of reference and perspective that I've got. So it was crazy because I didn't really buy into it until these past 2 weeks. And in these past 2 weeks, I was literally 20 feet away from a guy who made 60 grand in 45 minutes. And that changed me. Like, I can't unsee that. I can't be unexposed to that, right? And as somebody who, my parents, I'm pretty sure combined, don't make $60,000 a year. Like, no shade to my parents. I love my parents. I had an amazing childhood, et cetera, et cetera. But, like, to me, that was a lot of money. I don't think I knew that many people growing up who made more than that in a year, much less in 45 minutes, right? And obviously that's what he got paid for a keynote where I was with him. And it changed the way that I think about success, entrepreneurship, and money. Especially because, and this came up in a presentation that he did over the weekend when we were in Dallas, we were talking to a group of Forex traders, and he was like, look, a lot of y'all have on diamond watches, Cuban link chains, different jewelry that cost $60,000. He was like, if you're going to pay that much for something that does not serve you, if you're going to pay that much for a watch, and I'm going to come in here and give you some principles and some ideas and some concepts and explain some things to you and light a fire under you so that you can go make more money, you have to pay me at least what you spent on your watch. And I was like, that is so crazy, because as somebody who, I didn't grow up poor, but I didn't grow up rich either. I didn't go on an airplane for the first time until I was 17. I paid for the ticket myself. I worked throughout high school so I could pay for my own competition fees, uniform fees, things like that for gymnastics, because we couldn't really afford it as a family. I had to go out and work to get that type of money. I worked all throughout college. I don't come from a type of environment where you think like that. And I think that's the biggest thing that my old mentor, Brandon, was trying to get me to understand is look, if you start chasing money too early, you might make more money more quickly, but you're going to miss out on experiences and getting exposed to things that are actually what's necessary to take you where you want to go. The money isn't going to take you where you want to go, especially if you want to make more. If you want to get to the next level, you can't start chasing money too early, because you're going to get a quicker payoff and a higher payoff faster, but over the long term, it's not the right play. That's what he was trying to get me to understand. And now I get it, because I took, with the ET internship thing, that internship was with internship pay, and then that internship turned into a full-time opportunity, which was, it was reasonable pay, but it wasn't Wall Street money that I probably could have made if I wanted to go use my degrees. It was a sacrifice of sorts, and it's hard to even, conceptualize that or say that, because it doesn't seem like a sacrifice at all, because I wanted that opportunity so bad. But it was a sacrifice in the short term as far as how much money I was going to make in my immediate post-grad years. But now, after seeing that, again, I can't unsee it. I can't unclick what happened in my mind to say, okay, I might have grown up in an environment where 60 grand was a lot of money, but now I'm in an environment where people are spending that amount of money on useless crap that will not pay them, that will depreciate and lose value, right? Watches, cars, whatever. And here's somebody saying, no, you can pay me that because that's what I'm worth for the information that I'm giving you. And I think that, and here's another thing too, the reason that he can get paid that amount of money for speaking is because of the decisions that he's made. He's not getting paid for the 45 minutes that he's spending on stage from a manual labor standpoint, from a work standpoint. And I think that's another mindset that I had to get out of too, is like, you don't get paid for the work that you do, you get paid for the value you provide. And for somebody who comes from a working class community, that's a different concept. So he's not getting paid for the time and the labor that he is spending on stage. He's getting paid for the decisions that he's made to put him in that place, and the things that he's done to invest in himself and learn, and the things that he's had to go through to understand those concepts on a personal level to be able to articulate them on stage. That's what he gets paid for. But he provides so much value in that short amount of time that you have to pay him that amount of money. So to wrap up that first point, exposure is worth more than gold. I would just encourage anybody, and like this is, and I don't take a lot of credit for most things that I do. Like I genuinely believe that any success that I have is due to a select few people that are not me. Like it's God, it's my parents, it is some of my coaches growing up, and now at this point in my life, it is some of my mentors like Brandon and ET and some of these other people that I've mentioned. Like they get all credit for any success that I get. I have done nothing to deserve anything that I currently have or will have in the future. It's not me whatsoever. But the one thing that I at least would say I feel like I made a good decision on was shooting my shot for the internship with ET, turning down a stable job, and that's a whole other story that I don't think we need to get into right now, but turning down a stable job to take that opportunity to even have the shot at getting the internship, and really just focusing on putting off money, especially as somebody who's motivated by money. Like I've wanted to be rich since I was 3 years old, right? So putting that off and delaying that gratification and just getting the experiences and the exposure, you can't buy that. Like you can't, I mean, I guess you can buy it, but it takes a lot of money to buy exposure. But once you get the exposure, you can make as much money as possible, or as much money as you want. So again, anybody who's in that position, whether you're in high school, whether you're in college, whether you're about to graduate, don't worry about money in the short term. Like you have time. People always say life is short. Life's kind of long. Like I'm 24 and I feel like I've lived about 100 years. Like life's kind of long. So I'm not saying don't push yourself and kind of be in a hurry to accomplish things, but at the same time, you don't need to feel like you have to go be a millionaire by the time you're 30. Like if you can do it, that's phenomenal, but I think you have a better chance of actually accomplishing that by getting the exposure, the experiences, and learning and investing into your education and maybe sacrificing some of that short-term financial gain than chasing the money and pushing off the experience. At least that has been my perception of things, because like I said, I am literally a changed person just from the things that I've been able to observe over these past 2 weeks. Not because of what I got paid these past 2 weeks, but because of what I have observed these past 2 weeks. All right, moving on. It's funny how I always talk about how I'm not a speaker. Like I'm a coach. I work one-on-one with people. I'm not really much of a speaker. And now I don't shut up. It's funny. That's what happens when you get around the number one motivational speaker in the world. Anyway, principle number 2 that I've learned over these past 2 weeks is what you want most is hidden where you least want to look. That's a concept that I heard from Jordan Peterson the first time. He talks about this story of the Knights of the Round Table, and they go and look for, if you haven't heard of Jordan Peterson, by the way, he is a psychologist and a professor at the University of Toronto, I believe. But he's got some pretty cool content from a more scientific, psychological perspective, more so than a motivational perspective. So it's a very well-grounded balance to a lot of the personal development space that I spend my time in. So definitely go check out his content if you're interested in stuff like that. But he tells the story of the Knights of the Round Table, which was they're looking for the Ark of the Covenant. They have to go into this forest to find it, and each knight has to start their search by entering the forest at the point that looks darkest to him, meaning, metaphorically, that they have to go to the scariest possible place, because what's in the dark? Monsters and things that you don't want to deal with, right? And so the point of that story is you have to search where you don't want to look. What you want is hidden behind the door that you don't want to open, right? Everything you want is on the other side of fear. And so for me, as an introvert, and when I say as an introvert, I mean literally as a 22-year-old grown man, as a fifth-year senior in college, having panic attacks on the first day of class because I had to raise my hand and introduce myself to the class, like that type of introvert, right? Me getting on stage with, like, 10 feet away from the number one speaker in the world, and giving a presentation and talking without notes, without slides, without a PowerPoint, just standing up in front of people and talking and speaking and being vulnerable about my story and trying to teach them some lessons from my experience, that I've literally never been that scared in my life. And that was one of those experiences that I had in these past 2 weeks. I've never been that scared. I've never been that scared to compete in gymnastics. I've never been that scared, like literally anything. But it was a transformative experience for me, just because, like, there's no greater endorsement that you can get in the speaking world than to have ET bring you up on stage and think that your contributions are going to be valuable. And so for me, not only is it a tangible, practical breaking through the fear, like I actually did it and I proved to myself that I could do it, it didn't kill me, but more than that, I got the mental validation that I don't suck. And I know that sounds funny, but I was able to go up there, I was able to do it, and then I was able to actually impact people with it. So not only am I capable of it, but I'm not half bad either. And for me, I've always had a lot of ideas. I've always had a lot of concepts that I feel like have been stuck in my head. I've always had things that I feel like I could help people, but I didn't know how to articulate it. Or maybe I did, and I could articulate it in writing, but I was too afraid to even do something as simple as this. Just sit down, hit record on a camera, and just actually release it to the world and see what people think about it. Like, that was a terrifying thing for me for my entire life, and I feel like these past 2 weeks, I almost got liberated from that. But the only way that I was able to do that and get the emotional buy-in from myself to say, you actually are people, it's worth people hearing from me. Like, and it's crazy to think about that. Like, how low do you have to be on yourself to really think that your voice isn't worth hearing or your ideas aren't worth hearing? But a lot of people go through that. I'm not the only one. And I got the emotional buy-in for myself, but I also got that practical experience of just doing it and getting through it. Like, it's never going to be that hard again. The first time is always the scariest, right? And I was able to take that first step. And E.T. has become famous for his saying, small steps, great distances. And so that first step was terrifying. And when I say terrifying, like, I've never been so nervous to the point I thought I was going to get physically sick until that day. Again, these past 2 weeks, transformative experience, I was literally that nervous that I felt like I was about to get sick, pass out, everything. I was literally shaking when I got up there at first, but I got through it. And I wouldn't have been able to do that if I hadn't have been willing to confront that voluntarily, head on. And I think that's what a lot of people are missing, right? And I literally feel like I've unlocked something. Like, I've unlocked the next thing that's necessary on my journey. Alex Ramosi talks a lot about, I try and give credit, excuse me, I try and give credit where it's due, because I listen to so many different influences, so I try and always shout these people out, these great thinkers and you know, people that I've kind of borrowed ideas from. But Alex Ramosi says that entrepreneurship, and I would personally extend this to personal development in general, is a balance of character traits, skills, and beliefs. Beliefs, character traits, skills. And I feel like I've been stuck at a certain level because of certain beliefs, skills, and character traits. Meaning, I've always been good at writing. I've always been good at business and business development. I've always been good at structuring things, putting together a product, putting together an offer, writing advertisement copy. Like, I've always been good at some of that behind the scenes stuff, but now I broke the belief that I wasn't worth listening to. I developed the skill of being able to come up with these different techniques, how to weave stories into my principles, how to project to an audience. I've come to acquire the skill of speaking, and then I developed the character trait of, even though this is one of the things that scares me the most of anything in life, public speaking is one of the things that scares me the most, I was able to develop the character trait of, okay, even though it scares me, I'm willing to push through that. Even though it scares me, I'm willing to attack that anyway. And so those three things, I feel like it unlocked the next level for me, not just as an entrepreneur, but as a human being, like as somebody who is trying to find my way in life and just have something to offer society. Like, that's a big development for me. And so I would just say that if there's anything like that in your life, whether it's speaking, whether it's writing, it's a certain subject in school, whether it's a certain relationship, like whatever it is, if you've got something in your life that just terrifies you, if you've got something in your life that you feel like it might have something to it, and that's the crazy thing about it, is I've known for years that I had it in me, but I just couldn't quite figure out how to get it from here to out here. And now I'm in a position where I've got the ability to literally get on a stage and change somebody's life. Things that I used to only be able to do one-on-one, I can now do 1 to 100, 1 to 1,000, 1 to 10,000, and I can get paid for it. And it can take my career as an entrepreneur to the next level just because I was willing to confront that fear. I was willing to work on my own beliefs, self-confidence, etc., and I was willing to develop that skill. And so I knew for years that was the next step for me. I was just afraid to take that step. And if I could go back, that is absolutely one thing that I would change, is just start tackling that earlier. And I told myself I was working on it, but I was working on it privately. I was like just dipping my toe in the water. I wasn't actually going all in. I think that the only way to do it, like, I'm not going to be scared anymore now. Because, yeah, I could have gone a little bit slower. I could have started producing content like this and started with just me in front of a camera, release a couple YouTube videos. I could have started like that. But now, after being on stage with the #1 in the world, what's scarier than that? Like, I feel like there's nothing that can stop me anymore. And so if you have a fear like that, or if you have something that you feel like could take you to the next level, but you just haven't acted on it yet, just do it. Like, literally, just do it. Attack it with everything that you have. And you might not be successful. I might have bombed on stage. It still would have been better than me avoiding it. I guarantee you. Because then you'll at least learn something about yourself. You'll learn where you need to improve, how you can get better, and you'll actually have actionable steps that you can take to execute and improve and start working towards that next level. But if you just think about it, nothing ever changes. So what you want most is hidden behind where you least want to look. Run headlong at that thing, whatever it is for you. I promise you it's going to change your life. Number 3, this is going to be the last one for this video on these just different things that I've learned over these past 2 weeks are whoever you are, you belong at the top. And this is something that I think is probably the biggest thing that I've learned over these past 2 weeks. And the way that this happened was a crazy circumstance. So I told you earlier on in this video, I didn't fly on an airplane for the first time until I was 17 years old. I bought the ticket myself, etc., etc. Like, when I was growing up, again, didn't grow up poor. Like, we always had food on the table. We always had a roof over our heads. I didn't grow up rich either. And we drove everywhere. Like, literally 12-hour long road trips. If that's what it took, we would drive. And we never flew anywhere. If it was too far to drive, we just didn't go because we couldn't afford the prices of a plane ticket. It just didn't make sense for us at the time. And so I found myself on a private plane with Eric Thomas at one point during these past 2 weeks. And it was such a surreal experience. Like, 7 years after being on a plane for the first time ever, now I'm on a private plane with the #1 speaker in the world. And it was a crazy perspective shift. Because it's one of those things that I think, coming from where I come from, you think about it, you dream of it, but there's a part of you that doesn't really think that it's possible, right? And I know I'm not the only one out there that's felt that. Like, whatever it is that you want to do, you want to fly on a private jet, you want to, I don't know, play professional sports, you want to go to a Ivy League college, you want to make a certain amount of money, be a millionaire, whatever it is, you shoot for it, but there's a part of you that's like, I don't know if I can actually do that, at least for people like myself. And so when it actually happened, it just reinforced a couple of things. One, it reinforced that this is possible. Like, you're here now and this is possible. Like, somebody owns this jet, we're on it, you can actually do it. Whoever owns this thing is a human. The two people that are on the jet are human beings. Like, it's not like there's some omnipotent, all-powerful being that's accomplishing these great things. Like, they're just people like you and me. And I think that's, again, it goes back to the idea of exposure, right? Watching E do what he does, making that amount of money. He's a man just like I'm a man. He can speak just like I can speak. It's no different. And so you got to get the exposure to really believe in that. It's not the same just watching YouTube videos. It's not the same Googling. It's not the same seeing it on TV. It's not the same. You have to go get the experience. You need to use your senses, see it with your own eyes, hear what that sounds like, touch the leather seats of the car that you want, like whatever it is. You need to get that experience, that exposure. But anyway, we've already talked about that. So the thing that struck me the most was, as we were on the plane, I started really thinking about, how did we get here? How did I get here, and how did E get here? And what I realized was we got there respectively by being ourselves, our 100% genuine, authentic selves. The ET that you see on the videos is the ET that you get when you're just hanging out with him one-on-one. He is really that person. He is really that giving. He is really that generous. He is really that kind-hearted. He is really that authentic. He is really that genuine. And he genuinely wants to help other people, and he wants to help people develop and improve. And so he got there by being his loud, gregarious, energetic self. That's how he got there. I got there by being my supportive, introverted, introspective, thinking, analytical, systematic self, and supporting him so well that he felt compelled to bring me with him on the trip, and we just so happened to end up on the jet. And I was like, it's crazy, because I think that no matter what side of the aisle you're on, you always think, at least this was my previous belief. Again, beliefs, skills, character traits. My previous belief was I needed to be something different in order to get to where I wanted to go. So everybody that I had seen be super successful in the entrepreneurship space, especially in the personal development and the coaching and consulting space, was a little bit louder. They were great speakers. They were naturally energetic. They were naturally creative. They were great on stage. They had a lot of energy. Like, their natural setting was a little bit different from mine. I can do it, but that's not my natural predisposition, right? But then I start thinking about it, and I'm like, I bet that the super duper extroverts of the world are probably looking at Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos and saying, these quiet dudes who just sit there and think all day, they're the ones who get all the success and make all the money. And so no matter who you are, or what your predisposition is, or what your skills and talents are, I think we always look at other people as, oh, they're the ones who are being successful. And what I realized on that plane is, here's two people who are super, super different, but both have a lot of value to provide to the marketplace and a lot of value to provide to other people. And we both got there by offering that value the way that we know how to offer it. And it was just such a huge perspective shift for me, because for the first time in my life, I felt like I didn't have to be somebody other than who I naturally am in order to be successful, in order to get to where I wanted to go, in order to belong at the top. And I think so many people struggle with that. I think so many people think that they have to change. And the reality is, you don't have to change. You just have to be all of who you are. And it goes back to the speaking thing and going to the next level by doing the things that you're afraid of and forcing yourself to grow and level up by getting a little bit uncomfortable. Because for me, that was like, I told you, I feel like I've unlocked a new not dimension, a new level of me, my career, what I'm capable of because of these past 2 weeks, not just because of the experience and the exposure, but also because of what I willingly, voluntarily subjected myself to, even under stress and fear. But I think that if we could just do that, then it would allow us to be all of who we already are. Because it's not that I didn't, or I wasn't capable of articulating the things that I already had inside. It wasn't that I wasn't capable of taking that systematic analytical thought process that was developed in the mind of an introvert and then sharing it with the world through things like this. It was never that I wasn't capable. It's that I was holding back, right? And I think that a lot of people think of holding back or not going all in a very unidirectional sense, like in a very, is that even a word? Is that how you'd say that? They think of it in a very narrow-minded definition. That's probably a better way of saying it. They think of not going all in as effort. They think, oh, you're just not working hard enough, or I'm just not spending enough hours on the task at hand, or I'm not grinding the way that I should be grinding. And a lot of times that's true. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you. A lot of times for a lot of people, that is very true. But that's not the only way that you can hold back. You can also hold back in your commitment. You can also hold back by not being emotionally bought into what you're doing. You can also hold back by not focusing and going all in on the one thing that you're supposed to be doing. And maybe you're spread out doing 10 different things. And so your lack of focus is really a lack of commitment, or a lack of going all in, or holding back. So it's not just sheer effort that makes the difference. It can be a variety of things. And so as I was thinking about that, and me with the speaking and everything, that's really that's the conclusion that I came to, is I don't have to change necessarily. I don't have to naturally be this super bubbly, energetic person. But what I do have to do is be all of who I naturally am. Whatever my authentic self is fine. But I have to be all of that. And I can't hold back out of laziness, out of fear, out of staying in my comfort zone, out of chasing money instead of experiences, like whatever it is, right? Some of those other things that we talked about already. I can't hold back. And if I do that, I think that if everyone would do that, I think that we would all be much more successful, and I think that the world would be a better place. Because whoever you are, the one thing I do know, and again, I'm just talking from my experiences. I don't claim to know everything about life. I don't claim to know everything about success. Who am I to try and tell somebody else how to live? But I do know that if we would all just be all of who we are, rather than trying to chase other things or be somebody else, or rather than just holding back out of fear or laziness, some of those other things that I mentioned earlier, if we would be all of who we are, I genuinely think the world would be a better place. Because no matter who you are, no matter what your gifts and talents are, no matter what your personality is or your predispositions are or anything like that, no matter what you look like, where you come from, I promise you the world needs what you have, but you've got to give it. You can't hold back. You can't hold on to that. I think that as human beings, and not to get too up in the sky or out there with it, I do think that we have an obligation to whatever gifts that we have an obligation to give that to everybody else. And I think not only are you robbing the world and other people from your influence if you hold back, but you're also robbing yourself. Because at the end of the day, the only way to be successful and get what you want is to help other people get what they want. And your gifts and talents at their fullest level is the only way that we can actually accomplish that. And so I guess I'll just end this video by saying, whoever you are, whatever you do, just go all in. Just do it. Whatever your hands find to do it with all your might. It really, truly is that simple. I think that we overcomplicate life sometimes. At the end of the day, when it comes down to it, that's really all that we have to do to change not only our lives, but others. And I promise you, if you believed, and I didn't start this journey believing in myself or in other people the way that I do now. It was a very hard fought belief. I had to see a lot to be able to get that belief. But I promise you, If you believed in yourself as much as I believe in you, you wouldn't second guess yourself another minute of your entire life, right? So for what it's worth, take that, think about it, meditate on some of that, and see you in the next video.